Let's do it on this Thursday. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Great to have you with us on Sports Wrap. Lon McEachern, World Series of Poker play-by-play voice, will drop by and chat with us for a few minutes. We'll also hang out with Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, who does a great job on the NBA. We'll talk about the NBA Finals. And I want to sort of propose a theory to him on Luka Doncic and his legacy, depending on how these NBA Finals turn out. But there is big news coming out of the world of the NBA, and it kind of took all of us by surprise, I think, because of where we are sort of in the off-season college basketball coaching calendar. I don't think anybody woke up this morning and expected to see the headline that Dan Hurley was being pursued by the Los Angeles Lakers. And not only that they were pursuing him, but that he was their top candidate for their head coaching job. All we've heard about is J.J. Redick. All we've heard, some of the top reporters talk about, Shams Charania, is J.J. Redick to the Lakers. And now the news comes out today. No, it's not J.J. Redick that is the object of the Lakers' affection. It's the UConn Huskies head basketball coach, Dan Hurley, who has won back-to-back titles in source and is still in the midst of a little bit of I don't want to call it a contract dispute, but he thought by now he'd have another new deal in place, which is weird considering he just got a deal in 2023. I just love the fact that contracts are meaningless in sports, by the way. Can I just go off on a tangent for a moment? The contracts are meaningless. They're meaningless with players, meaningless with coaches. Hey, you got a $5 or $6 million a year deal at the end of the 2023 season when you won a national championship. Oh, you want another championship? You want another one? I mean, if you didn't win a national championship this year, Dan Hurley, would we be taking some of that money back? I don't get it. So the Lakers are reportedly interested and want to go after Dan Hurley. I spoke to a source this morning, a very good source, who did not want to be named, who said that Hurley is intrigued by the Lakers' job. They didn't want to say much more than that, but they did not want to they didn't want to say much more than that other than the fact that Hurley was intrigued by the possibility of coaching the Lakers. Here's my take on this. I'm going to try to calm UConn fans, bring down the temperature a little bit for UConn fans. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's playing the game. I think he's probably got a smart agent because Hurley, by his own admission, really doesn't know a lot about, sort of this aspect of the industry. At least that's what he says. Might be playing dumb, but that's fine. I think he's playing the game. And I think the game here is leveraging the Lakers and getting more money out of UConn. And being able to say to UConn, hey, you don't want to give it to me. Somebody else is going to. I mean, look, the Lakers want to give me all this money. Remember what life was like pre-Dan Hurley. Do you want to go back to that? Do you want to watch players defecting from UConn to go to other programs because I'm not here? Now, granted, if he were to leave, I think UConn would have to hire somebody from within the program because the coaching carousel is stopped. The game of musical chairs is over. Everybody's got their place, unless you try to convince, a Brad Stevens to come back to the collegiate ranks, a Billy Donovan to come back to the collegiate ranks. Unless you're doing something like that, somebody already on that UConn staff would wind up being the person to get that job. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense that he would... above and beyond all of that, happy wife, happy life, Dan Hurley has made it abundantly clear that he is married to a woman that wants to stay in the Northeast. The Kentucky job was out there if he wanted it. And he said, I don't want to go to Lexington. Now, look, with all due respect to our friends in Lexington, Los Angeles and Lexington are drastically different. Somebody who loves the LA lifestyle, probably not going to like the Lexington, Kentucky lifestyle. But you have UConn, who's won back-to-back titles. He has a chance to do something very special in winning 3 in a row. They are one of the top favorites to win a 3rd title in a row. Why are you going to leave that? If this were the Celtics' job, if Joe Mazzulla had gone out early in this postseason and the Celtics' job had opened up, I think the Celtics' job would have been a done deal. If the Knicks' job had opened up, done deal. I don't think he's taking the Nets' job. I don't think he'd want that job. But to me, I don't think the Lakers is the right job for him. Got to remember, right now it's about LeBron there. Long term, it's not about LeBron. Long term, that job is about Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis supposedly wants Borrego for that job, not J.J. Redick and not Dan Hurley. And I know there's all this conversation about what a great play caller and X's and O's guy Dan Hurley is and how that could be the difference. Why him? Rick Pitino wasn't a great X's and O's guy. We know John Calipari wasn't a great X's and O's guy. We've seen what Billy Donovan has done at the NBA. There's been a lot of successful collegiate basketball coaches that have gone to the NBA and not done well. There's a graveyard of them. Why is Dan Hurley going to be the one? Because he won 2 titles at UConn? It's just a different world. And I don't think it's the best move for him. But he does have ambitions to coach in the NBA. We've heard that a lot. We've heard that he's always had his sights set. And if you're going to go to the NBA, I mean, go big or go home. Is there anything bigger than going to coach the Los Angeles Lakers? I mean, you've seen the movie Showtime on Max, the series. I think it's a leverage play. If I were a betting man, which I occasionally have been known to do, I would say he stays at UConn. Like Shams Charania, I could wind up being very wrong. Dig. All right, we're coming back. More sports wrap on this Thursday. Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com joins us next. This Thursday edition of Sports Wrap continues, and it continues with the NBA. Let's go out to Boston, Massachusetts, or somewhere thereabouts, at an undisclosed location. It's Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Hanging out with us.
It's an undisclosed location. It's like a
Holiday
it's a safe
Inn
house. In no way is it like a Marriott Courtyard. It's a safe house.
It's a Holiday Inn. It's a Motel 6. Oh God, I've stayed at more Motel 6s than I care to remember when I travel. All right, I got to get your thoughts because I just talked about it in the last segment. This Dan Hurley story that popped on Thursday morning, kind of surprising all of us, because it felt like we were way past the window where this would be a conversation until you realize that Hurley still doesn't have his new deal with UConn that he would like to have already had wrapped up, and that was discussed this week with the Huskies head basketball coach. I don't think, and I just said this in the last segment, I don't think he's taking the Lakers job. I feel like he's using it as leverage to get more money from UConn. He'll go through the romancing experience, enjoy it, much like a player goes through free agency a lot of times, but winds up staying with the team he's with and ultimately stays there. I think he's staying at UConn. What do you get out of this news after we had just heard yesterday, another basketball reporter saying that, it was J.J. Redick's job?
Look, it's never been quite as sure because the Lakers, there's hesitancy within the organization. There didn't seem to be a consensus around Redick simply because they just had a first-time coach and one who had high-level assistant experience, and it didn't work out. Like Darvin Ham was one of those guys who deserved a shot. It didn't pan out for them. And then they're going to go to a guy with zero experience. Like again, could still happen. but that's a huge leap by the Lakers. Hurley makes a ton of sense, and I could see where they would be aggressive in going after him because he is great at X's and O's. He is very good at player development. He should be a good NBA coach, and he has hinted in the past that he'd be open to the idea. But like you said, there's a lot of college. What does he want? And this is what I don't know because I don't know him. Is he happy at UConn in the sense that that's where he wants to be? Or is he one of those guys who wants the next challenge, is always looking for the next challenge? Because the Laker job is one of the most prestigious and one of the hardest in the NBA. And if you want to challenge yourself, that's a good spot to be.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I still, I look at Pitino, I look at Calipari, and there's way more examples of it not working out with these elite college coaches coming into there's too many examples for me to think, oh yeah, Hurley's going to be the one. What makes him any better than Pitino or John Calipari?
Or Billy Donovan, who had a couple
or Leonard Hamilton.
Has been fine, by the way, has been a fine NBA coach.
Fine don't cut it in LA. You know that.
No, exactly. Well, to be fair to Billy Donovan, the problems in Chicago may not be his doing, but that's a whole different, that's a whole different couple of segments. But I get the attraction, but it's also the high risk job. It is a franchise with a ownership group, front office, and rabid fan base whose expectations are through the roof, regardless of what the roster looks like.
Sounds like Kentucky. Right? It sounds like Kentucky.
Exactly.
It sounds like Kentucky basketball and what Calipari had to deal with there. All right. We'll see what happens with it in the next couple of days. As I said, my source tells me that Hurley is intrigued.
I see.
That's sort of where we are.
When the pretty girl at the bar flirts with you, it's hard not to be, but that doesn't mean that's where you go home.
What have you taken away from Media Day and everything surrounding this NBA final and what people are talking about as we get ready for Game 1 on Thursday night?
I think the two big storylines everybody's talking about start with what can Boston get out of Kristaps Porzingis? He will play. He was in a starter's jersey during practice on the day, on Wednesday, the day before Game 1. He probably starts, but hasn't played, Jason, like a minute since April 29th. How many minutes can he play? How much? Talk about 0 to 100. I haven't played in 5 weeks. I'm going to have to switch out on Luka. That is a brutal call, man. It is asking a lot. What can he give them? Because they need his shooting to really space the floor. They're not going to fear Al Horford the same way, even though he had with the 7-3, hit 7 threes against Indiana. It's not the same. And the other thing is just, it is going to be loud in there. Those fans, the hatred, the venom for Kyrie Irving is palpable. I think he, though, is just in a better place. I don't think it's going to phase him. And, dude, Luka played in Europe where flares are going off in the stands before he was 18. He's going to be fine. It's not going to bother him. But I think Kyrie's in a better place. I don't think you're going to see him stomping on Lucky and flipping birds again.
I would agree with you on that. For the Mavericks to win this series, blank needs to absolutely happen.
Outside of the obvious that Luka is your MVP
sure.
and went right. I think it starts with look, Kyrie's going to have a challenge in this series because Dallas is so deep with good defenders that he's always going to have Derek White or Drew Holiday on him, basically.
You mean Boston? You mean Boston is good with deep defenders?
Boston, okay. Boston is always going to have a quality defender on him. It's going to have to be, and the guys who have stepped up in previous series, but it's got to be P.J. Washington. It's got to be Derek Jones Jr. out of the corner. And mostly maybe it's got to be Lively. I think you're going to get a lot of Derek Lively this series. It doesn't have to be the same guy every night, but one of them is going to have to step up because let's try that again. Boston is going to throw everything at Luka. They've got the bodies to throw different looks at him every time down the court. And because they can do that, it's going to take other guys stepping up. I think we'll have a Kyrie game, but it's really going to come down to the Dallas role players have to be good, and their defense, which has been so good, it has to live up to that against a team that spaces them out differently than anybody they've faced. They can't just drop Lively in the paint.
See, I think Porzingis can be a factor in the paint. I'm curious to see what his lateral movements are like if Luka takes him off the dribble, I think that's where it could be an issue for him.
And if you drop him and you say, hey, man, he's 7'3", I'm going to drop him in the paint.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not as good as Rudy Gobert in the paint, and Rudy just got torched.
That is very true. I want to get your thoughts on the coaching matchup in this series as well, because look, I think the Mavericks are going to win the series. I have, from the day this matchup was consummated, I have felt like this was a series that belonged to Dallas. I just think it's on so many levels. There's three keys to me to this series. We'll talk about them on the other side, but Luka, best player on the floor. Kyrie already won a title, been in the position. Jason Kidd has won a title, and he's a damn good coach, and I think he's a better coach than Joe Mazzulla. We're going to talk about it some more. Kurt Helin joining us from Boston. That's his name. We're coming back. More Sports Wrap. Hanging out on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap, the one and only Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. From a no-tell motel in Boston.
I'm not far. You're making it sound like I'm out in Hinterland. I'm not far from the Commons, man. Like I'm actually in a good spot. This is why pros know to book. Look, man, I booked this March, maybe.
Really?
Because kind of had a good idea.
Wow,
hotel
that's
room.
really interesting. You put your money and your booking where your mouth is, because you thought that they were going to be there.
I could cancel it, obviously, up until it was a cancelable reservation. But yeah, I had one here. I had one in Denver that let's say I didn't use. So,
let me just ask you one more thing on this series, because I think Jason Kidd is a better head coach than Joe Mazzulla. If it is obvious in this series, Celtics lose in 6. If it's obvious that it's a coaching issue, if you're not gonna break up Tatum and Jaylen Brown, if the Celtics don't win this title, could Mazzulla pay the price for it ultimately?
So you're saying Hurley to the Celtics? I just want to start your rumors for you.
No. Listen, I have said, if that were the job that was open, he'd be there in 5 minutes.
They would have to, if they lose this series, barring freak injury or something that just changed the dynamic. If they lose this series in 6 or 7 games, it is an organization. You have to now rethink everything. Like, you've gotten here, how many times, you've been good for how long. And I think that starts with Mazzulla, who I thought did a really good job this year. I thought he grew into the job. I thought he definitely improved. And frankly, if you'd asked me mid-season, I would have said he's doing a better job than Kidd. But Kidd, to his credit, and this is, I mean, by the way, not to go on another Lakers tangent, but look how long it took him to grow into the job, right? Like, he was one of those, hey, man, you're a Hall of Fame player. Here's a head coaching gig. And it took him a third job, a lot of years to learn how to coach in the NBA and I think in the playoffs has been the best coach in the NBA. Like, he's been brilliant through the playoffs, and I expect to see more of that here. I'm not sure. I think it's one of the unknowns for me in this series is the coaching advantage. Even if you think Kidd is better, which I
just think Kidd is more tested. I think Kidd's more tested from a coaching standpoint in this series because of the road to get there.
Yeah. Oh no.
As opposed to Mazzulla, who was playing every team he played was missing its biggest star.
I think they are sharper coming in. They have had to be to get here, and I think there could be culture shock in Game 1 for Boston, where they're not ready for the level of intensity and physicality and play that Dallas has had to do to get here. I think it'll be interesting to see. I don't know about the coaching matchup. I really don't know which side is going to be better on this. But I think Mazzulla's advantage is he's just got more pieces on the chessboard. Right. I think that he doesn't have to be quite as good. He doesn't have to be, as creative and take as many risks because he's got options.
If Luka Doncic, and this was actually going to be the opening segment of the show today, I was going to talk about this on my own. If Luka Doncic wins a title, beats this Boston team with everything it accomplished during the regular season, are we having a conversation about, does he already pass Dirk if he were to win a title with this team? Because I think he does. When you look at already the body of work and what we're going to probably get from him for another 7 to 10 years, if he decides to play that long, does he already pass Dirk?
I don't know that he's there right now, just because Dirk was a regular season MVP. Luka will get that. Hasn't gotten it yet. Yeah, will. Dirk played 21 years and was very good for 15 to 17 of those.
Yes.
Whatever that number you want to go with. Was an all NBA kind of player for a lot of those years. So I'm not ready to go there just because of the longevity of Dirk. But if you're projecting forward, yes. Like, I just think Luka's going to go down as one of the greats. Like, he's just been that good.
Yeah, I would agree. What pops into your mind when it comes to Dirk and what he did throughout his career? Because sometimes when these things go, when we look back at him in the rearview mirror and have these sorts of conversations, maybe I'm being short-sighted. Maybe I'm not remembering something about how great Dirk was. I mean, I don't know. Is there something I'm missing?
I think, to me, though, he becomes the avant-garde for the modern NBA big, right? He is the first big to really space the floor. He is the best, with all due respect to Karl Anthony Towns, still the best shooting big man of all time in my mind. That one-legged fadeaway is
looking at it right now,
one of the historically great shots, right? But, like, the fact that you had to go cover him on the perimeter at 7 foot, he was the first. I mean, guys have evolved now, and you got Durant, and you've got all the bigs hitting. Joel Embiid has taught himself to hit threes, right? Bigs do that. But Dirk was, I think, revolutionary in that way, where Doncic, look, he's a 6'8" point guard who carves teams up. I don't want to say that model hasn't been there. There's just nobody quite like him. It's such a high IQ player, such a instinctively brilliant player who, what he and Kyrie do and what could win them this series, they're both tough shot hitters, right? Yeah. Those guys both hit hard shots. Boston's going to challenge them, but Dallas has guys who hit those.
Before I let you go, I would be remiss if I didn't get a prediction from you. Who wins the series and in how many games?
I have Boston in 7, and it's a little risky betting against Luka in a game 7, frankly. My head tells me, just on paper, Boston in 5 or 6. Like, I think they're that much better on paper.
Really?
But I respect Luka so much that, like, look, Dallas can win this series, and I think it goes at least 6.
Maybe I have a blind spot on Boston, and it's not a hatred thing, because people say, "Oh, you're a Knicks fan." I'm not so blinded. We've talked about this on the show. I've written about it and made many friends in Boston with this thing. They just don't intimidate you right now. They don't, and part of it was they didn't have to, and then because of who they faced coming in this postseason. But they have not played with the urgency and they just don't strike fear in the hearts of opponents quite the same way. They're a little too cool for school, and maybe that bites them in this series. They can't have, let's put it this way, they can't have 2 games where they miss all their threes. They're going to take a ton of them. There's always one. If they have 2, they're in trouble, because Luka will win 1 or 2 on his own, and suddenly it's a game. You think Dallas wins game 1?
Yeah. I'd probably win game 1. Let's put it this way. I'd probably bet them. If you told me Boston came back at the end and snuck one out, fine.
Okay.
But it's close.
Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, joining us from Boston. Enjoy the NBA Finals, my friend. We'll talk next week.
I look forward to it, man.
We're coming back. We roll along on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. I want to change sort of the mood a little bit. One of my favorite things in the world is poker. And we are at that time of the year. The World Series of Poker is going on over in Las Vegas. I haven't announced this publicly, but I guess I am now when I say I'm moving to Las Vegas in August 1st. Partner and I are moving to Las Vegas. We bring in Lon McEachern with that thought, break down the World Series of Poker. And my goal is 2025 to be the year that I play my first World Series of Poker event. Yes.
You haven't played yet?
No, I barely ever make it out to Vegas. I have no money. I'm poor. I have no money. I'm working media, so I have no money. I mean,
yeah, right. So the only reasons I can think you're leaving where you are and going to Vegas is one, the FBI is after you, or you've been kicked out of your place.
I'll actually give you a real reason. You live in California, so you know this. The taxes are brutal. I'm getting crushed by taxes in this state. And as much as I love Palm Springs, California, the reality is I need to get back to being in a major league sports market with this kind of show.
You can't be crying poor and complain about how many taxes you pay, though. Those really don't go in line, Jason. Okay.
Well, my partner makes the money. I'm not making as much. All right, so I want to get your thoughts on a few things. For people who are watching the show that play poker with their friends and play in their local card game, but play somewhat regularly, but don't really understand the World Series of Poker, how would you describe to the ordinary person that might play some poker with their buddies but isn't really plugged into the poker scene, how would you describe the World Series of Poker?
For those guys, it's like maybe an 8-week orgasm. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if you have never been there before, I mean, it is eye-opening. It is sensory overload. It is, I'm done with this. What can I do now? And it takes like 4 seconds to decide that. The sound, the feel, the energy, there's a palpable energy in every room. The cheering, the losses, the lines in the bathroom, everything is part of the experience. And even if you're not going to play, and why not? I mean, you're there. You don't have to be paying $10,000 to play a World Series event. You can pay, like $330 for a World Series event. It used to be all the other casinos in town shut down because of the World Series. Wow. Now it's gone 180 degrees where they are bringing in their own series to go alongside the World Series. And they do the weeks. They do the seniors week, got all the casinos. They do the ladies week, all the casinos, the mixed game, it's like, so it is, it's amazing. It's crazy. I never get tired of it.
Bowling does something similar to that. Like around big bowling events, if bowlers go, they can take part in other side bowling events that are happening around those tournaments. So, and frankly, a lot of bowlers play poker. There's a lot of crossover between golf, bowling, poker. They all kind of go. They
are all greased with the greenbacks. Yeah, indeed. And there's so much money in town at the time. And people are looking to make up for what happened last night, and they go out to Orleans, or they go to MGM, they go to the Golden Nugget downtown. It's amazing. You can go. There's a schedule. You look up, summer poker schedule 2024. There's like 10 different sites. You can find every poker tournament during the summer, every day, whatever. I already have a schedule when I'm out there. Yeah.
The great Lon McEachern is hanging out with us, World Series of Poker, talking with him about this year's World Series of Poker. You can catch him with Maria Ho and Norman Chad, the broadcasts on Poker Go, and of course CBS Sports Network. This year's event, talk about sort of where we are in the state of the game. There's a couple things I want to break down with you in the next segment, but just in terms of sort of where we are with the stars of the game entering this year, who's playing the best. Give me some sense for where we are right now.
You're going to see the guys who are good at poker rise to the top, and one way you can do that, if you're going to want to check out what's going on and follow the action. It's hard day after day. I mean, there's 3 tournaments starting every day, and the tournament or 2 ending every day. And so trying to follow everything is kind of crazy. Updates, of course, at WSOP.com. And on that site, you can look on the little banner up there. It says POY, Player of the Year, and check the current stats on who's leading Player of the Year. And right now, it's the guys who have won a bracelet and maybe cashed pretty well in another event. They keep track of things, but you're going to find guys are starting to come together, like Josh Arieh, Player of the Year a few years ago. And, he's got some guys that he's with called Team Lucky. And so I don't know, I doubt they share a bankroll. They're all rich and they just, play all the events. And Sean Deeb is a guy who's part of it. And just, Daniel Negreanu, who's trying to be another player of the year. He's done it twice.
It's amazing.
Phil Hellmuth as well. They're all there. But you're going to see names that you've never seen before either. And that's what's really exciting. And what's fun for me, because I'm not there the whole time. I'm back and forth from California to Vegas like 3 or 4 times during the World Series. And so to go and pick an event you might like, and there's a drop-down box on WSOP.com for each event. It tell you if it's in progress and what the chip counts are, some updates on hand histories, stuff like that. But once an event is done, they'll do a write-up and do a story on the winner. And it's amazing just to read it. It's like a 2-minute read, and they do a really good job with describing who this person is, where they came from, and the stories are incredible.
I want to continue. Lon McEachern's going to hang out with us. We're going to bolt him to the chair as we continue with Sports Wrap on this Thursday.
Sure.
All right, I'm a liar. We were supposed to have Lon McEachern on for another segment. We were having technical issues with his connection. If you were watching the first segment, it was a bit choppy. So we say goodbye to Lon. Just for now, not forever. We'll have him back on the show at a future date, I can promise, because I love talking to the guy. And he said he's going to come over and have dinner with me in Vegas now that I've officially told the audience I am moving to Las Vegas in August. So, and Lon's always out there, so he said, now I gotta make dinner for him, and I could do that. Something to consider. Sam Yarnell is here. I lied. Sam is here. I said Sam's gonna have the day off, and there is Sam by the magic of television appearing on your screen. So I woke up to the news. I woke up this morning at about 5 a.m. because I had to take my my partner to the airport for a flight to D.C. here in Palm Springs. 5 a.m. in the morning, I'm up. And as I'm driving home, an alert pops up on my phone. Dan Hurley, the top target of the Lakers. By the way, Sham Sharanya, how you feeling today? Oh, J.J. Redick
Hey.
oh, yeah.
Hey.
Tell you, that guy has more of these moments than just about any national beat writer that's out there. But hey, let's put him on everywhere. So the reporting's out there from Adrian Wojnarowski about Dan Hurley being the top target of the Lakers. And there are so many things about this, and we talked about it at the top of the show. We talked about it a little bit with Kurt Helin, and bring in Sam now. So many things about this that don't make sense to me. One, Hurley has always maintained he didn't want to go to Kentucky when he could have had that job. If it were the Celtics job, I've said this before, I think he would have taken it yesterday. I don't think he's going to Los Angeles to take this job. I think he's using the Lakers. He's going to be romanced, enjoy it. But I think he's using it to get more money out of UConn because that's where he wants to be. I don't know. That's just the way I see it.
The development definitely adds a layer to this onion, right? That is the coaching cycle, especially this season of them all. And let's not forget that all of it started because Southern Methodist University fired their head basketball coach. We are not at this juncture that we are currently at if Southern Methodist University does not fire their head basketball coach at the end of the season. I digress. To the Dan Hurley part, I think that all of the language being used is very interesting. Hilarious that Shams got absolutely dunked on like less than 24 hours after his reporting of the J.J. Redick thing. This is going to be quite the newsworthy little bit of information for us to track over the next couple of weeks, because you know that the Celtics are going to come into the fold, right? Especially if they lose this series to Dallas. I think that Missoula job is very much in question, and I think that there's a realistic chance that they look for Dan Hurley and look to bring in that big name from the NCAA. Spotrac posted a bunch of the dives into the numbers and how much the Lakers would be projected to pay him, how much he would have to pay the University of Connecticut should he opt out and opt for the NBA. I think all of that is a very interesting layer as well that we don't seem to be talking about enough. This is Danny Hurley essentially tripling his salary for the low cost of $1.7, I believe, $million, which is his buyout, which would be 1/15th, 1/20th of what the Lakers would be paying him per year. So I'm the developments that come out of the NBA coaching tree, and I guess now the NCAA coaching tree over the next week and a half, Jason, until these finals are over and mere days after, going to be quite the storyline to follow for the two of us on this show.
Yeah, and look, I mean, forget being dunked on too. JJ Redick was on with Golick and the Golick guys yesterday, Mike and Mike Jr. He was on with the Golick guys yesterday, and they asked him about this, and he kind of danced around and said, I'm focused on the NBA Finals. But then he said, I'll deal with Shams after the NBA Finals are over. And it was a very cryptic sort of way of saying, you know, that he was going to go after Shams about the reporting on this story. So I'm interested to see how Redick goes after him on this, because there's been more people than Shams that have reported the Lakers' interest in JJ Redick, you know, and JJ's been very coy about this whole thing.
But Jason, Shams is the one who everyone goes with, right? And he is 1B to Woj in terms of the breaking news in the NBA game. So when he says something, where there's smoke, there's fire with those kinds of things. What I will say his mistake is in this whole thing is you have to be triple careful with everything that you're doing when you are reporting that a fellow media member may now be coming out of the media to go to an NBA team. Because you've got to remember, Shams, now, if that doesn't happen, you and JJ Redick are in the same arena that is NBA media, and he has full right to do whatever he wants to you after all of this has come out. So we've seen this before, like you said, Jason.
We have.
Shams does have this tendency to jump the gun with this polar news that has massive shockwaves throughout the NBA. I'm very curious to see how JJ handles this in either universe, whether he becomes a head coach or whether he remains in the media.
Yeah, I think there's an element of the Lakers using Hurley in some regard, if it is that they still want Redick. Anthony Davis wants Borrego, that from all accounts. And I think you've got Hurley trying to leverage this situation with UConn. We'll see how it all plays out over the next few days. All right, odds and ends right around the corner. Paul Skeens met Shohei Ohtani. We'll show you what happened next. All right, just about time to wrap things up. Before we do this, reminder, check out the vodcast version of the show, available on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and more. And now, without any further delay, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. There was a movie back in the, I think it was the late 80s. It was called When Harry Met Sally. Well, last night in Pittsburgh, it was when Skeens met Ohtani. And it did not go well in one instance for Skeens, and it went very well in another. That first instance being the first at bat, where you had Paul Skeens get up there just throwing cheddar, straight up cheddar, at 100 and 101 miles an hour. And he went up and into the kitchen of Ohtani and was able to strike him out. What did you make of the first ever meeting between the two? And Ohtani got him the second time around, took him yard to dead center. The ups and downs of baseball, I guess. But the Pirates won, and Skeens was great again.
Nothing better than power on power in baseball, Jason, and that's exactly what we got. And Pretty fun outcome all 3 times. Even the single for Ohtani was pretty nice off of Skeens. And then the strikeout to Like Ohtani, really every Ohtani at bat yesterday was just power on power. The Chapman strikeout too at 104. I mean, whoa. Always fun to watch. I love Paul Skeens. I loved him when he was at Air Force. I loved him when he was at LSU, and he's a lot of fun on the Pirates. I hope we get to see this in the playoffs one day. How fun would that be?
Only thing I worry about, and I watch him, and I try not to overanalyze these things sometimes, but you can't help yourself. I watch him throw. I watch him with a baseball, and I texted this to our friend David Ardsma last night, who will be on the show tomorrow, at least tentatively scheduled to be on the Friday show. I asked him, is he throwing or is he pitching? Because when I watch him in those at-bats against Ohtani, I see a guy throwing, and I just worry about the longevity. You can't help but wonder about the longevity of somebody that throws a baseball the way he does. I hope we get to see him for years. You know, Chapman's been out there for years, but he's a reliever, you know, still throwing 103, 104. I hope we get Skeens for a long time, because there's been so many instances of these flamethrowers that just don't last.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to be a Debbie Downer here, but
I understand what you're saying. I do. I think you make a good point. But Paul Skeens is I don't want to sound like everyone else, but Paul Skeens is different. He is larger, like frame wise, than these other pitchers that we see doing this and throwing at these crazy velocities, which means 2 things, right? It means it's 1, less stressful on his entire body to throw that hard, but 2, naturally, he's more susceptible to injury. There's more of him to get injured, so to say. It's a slippery slope. I think the Pirates, though, to their credit, and this is an organization, let's not forget, that has whiffed about as hard as you can on prospects in the very recent past. I'm looking right into your eyes, Henry Davis. I think they've been very conscious about that and very careful with Paul Skeens. I've talked about this on the show in the past. I do expect him to be shut down before September 1st. I think we're looking at like a mid-August shutdown for Paul Skeens this year, and I think that's for the best, Pittsburgh fans. Let's protect this guy, because he's going to be very special for a very long time. And don't forget about Jared Jones either.
Even if they're in a wild card chase, you think they shut him down?
Yes. And here's why. Steven Strasburg. The Nationals were in a wild card chase, did not shut they had Steven Strasburg on an innings limit. They shut him down early so that he wouldn't surpass that innings limit before the playoffs. It all turned into a mess. He ended up having his career shortened by injury anyway. I think they shut him down and they say, let's play, instead of for this year, for the next 5 years. They've still got a ton of young talent.
All right, I got 90 seconds left here. Give me some prop bets, something you like for this NBA Finals. I like the Mavericks at plus 188 to win the series. I like Doncic at plus 210 to be your Finals MVP. What do you got?
I would probably agree with you. I think I sold myself enough on the Mavericks on Wednesday's edition of Sports Wrap. Couple of props that I dove into I think would just be interesting. Numbers don't quite add up for me. Luka Doncic to score 30 points in every game, coming in at 8-1. The price just doesn't fit the number to me, so I would play that. Feels like we are getting a bit of an advantage against the books. His average per game prop in this series is 30.5. On the Celtics side, if you need to bet a Celtic player, I would go with Jason Tatum to score 50 in any game. Doesn't have to be in every game, but Jason Tatum to have 150 piece 10-1, feel like it's a good price, and it's better than just betting that every time. Talk game 1 really quick. They are offering head-to-head specials, and I just love these. I'm gonna bet Luka Doncic minus the 4.5 points against Jason Tatum tonight. I love the look for Luka. I think he comes out and is strong in game 1, and we've seen Jason Tatum in the past in the finals. I don't think that he's outscoring Luka tonight.
Is there a Luka 50-point prop?
Yeah, Luca to score 50 in any game. I also looked at plus 550. I would also play that.
Yeah, I like that too. That is
Because one of
Samuel.
them's going to go for 50.
Oh, yeah. And I think Luca will. Thank you to Lon McEachern. Thank you to Kurt Helin. Sam Yarnell, the late edition. We appreciate it as well. We'll see you back here on Friday for another edition of Sports Wrap. Tino Patino will be here on a NASCAR Friday. We'll see you then.